Michigan Mutual Aid Network here. Looking forward to a great meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you. Steve.
Steve Ediger, peer-to-peer in Chicago here. Live in the Greenrise, the Institute of Cultural Affairs Greenrise. Working on Chamber of Commons projects right now. Just finished a map that we're getting ready to publish for Shareable of all of the shareable entities in Chicago. And we identified over 430 shareable entities in Chicago. So pretty excited about that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else online who hasn't introduced yourself yet? All right, so let's go around this way.
All right, I'm Steve Garrett. I'm founder and president of a worker co-op here in town, and I'm interested in the idea of a cooperative economy.
And can you say the name of the co-op?
The Interpreters Cooperative.
Great.
I know very little about mutual aid networks or things that happen here, but I'm interested in cooperative economy as well.
Great, thanks.
I'm Angelica. I've been volunteering since I began. The East Coast Network of Peace and Justice. Dylan. Thanks.
Michelle Bowens, from Belgium, living in Berlin. I'm the founder of the P2P Foundation. Being here for the week is definitely maintaining a wiki also with different resources.
Great, thank you. And if people in the chairs want to move forward a little bit, it'll be easier to hear. Okay.
Paul Hartzog is a futurist. I work on building commons and I'm from Nashville, North Carolina.
Great.
John Guerin, from Wisconsin, living in Indianapolis. I do community organizing with the focus on labor, communication, and I work with the art and media cooperative.
Great.
Justice Castaneda, consultant, I live in Boston, from Madison.
Thank you.
Hi, Lynn Foster, just a couple hours west of here, and work on software for Next Economy projects.
Bob Haugen, I work with Lynn.
All right. Thank you. Laura, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm from Madison. I do the man books.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll start with a bit of an overview of, and I'll just try to give some basics about what mutual aid networks are. And I don't know why I'm losing I think the power strip is loose, so. Okay. Oh yeah, it's loose here, sorry about that. Okay. So essentially, mutual aid networks are a new type of cooperative. Legally, it is a co-op. And the purpose of this co-op, though, is redesigning work. So just realizing that our economic life generally is sort of mitigated through our work lives. We tend to have jobs, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 jobs, in order to earn the money that we need to pay for sort of every breath we take on this planet. And in my work, starting at least 10 years ago, probably back farther than that, I just realized that the way our economy is structured is sort of designed to drive everything I care about off a cliff, really devalues the kinds of work that I like to do, including playing music and working on social or environmental justice issues and doing things in my neighborhood and having a small business that wants to stay small, et cetera, et cetera. And then started looking into different kinds of currencies and cooperative ownership and different economic models and realized that we have everything we need. We have lots of models through all different times in human history that have really impacted society and culture in a lot of different ways than our current economy is operating. So just had a realization and had an opportunity through my work with the Dane County Time Bank to do sort of a research and development project on these things, and realize that we can take what's really good through human history and connect it with new technologies and new ways of understanding systems and ways of understanding organizing, and really create a new economy out of the tried and true sorts of pieces. Not just like kind of just recognizing the ecosystem that they fit in, and developing structures to sort of support good flow of resources. So what we realized is that we could become a cooperative around a common goal. So we incorporated a co-op in Wisconsin, but it's open for global membership. We call it the Maine MAN, the Maine Mutual Aid Network. We call these mutual aid networks because we want to create a situation where you can have your dream job and dream life working for the man. We want to be the new the man. And our mission is to create means for everyone to discover and succeed in work they want to do with the support of their community. So we just realized, number one, the world doesn't need and therefore will never provide 6 billion jobs, and why should we all have to have a job anyway? But there's an infinite amount of work to do, especially if we really value a lot of work that's been exploited and undervalued throughout our more recent human history, like the last several thousand years. Women's work, care, creativity, community building, civic engagement, all those kinds of work that are completely devalued in the market economy. We can sort of build a complementary economy by valuing and catalyzing that kind of work. And so our goal has always been looking to create an economy that's built on, catalyzes, and rewards abundance instead of scarcity. And we figured that doesn't seem like rocket science. And also, people can do rocket science. But the questions are, how do we build an economy that creates and awards abundance, and then just taking a look at and service to what? So about 20 years ago, I helped start Madison Hours Local Currency with like a really shallow understanding of local currencies and local economy, but I knew from my experience running a small business that we could use an injection of spending power that could stay local, and it did help. It made a friendlier market economy, but I realized later, I'm not just interested in enhancing the market economy. I mean, do we necessarily want to improve an economy that's built on exploiting people's insecurities to create needs for products that are built on finite resources and exploited labor? So just realizing that we would rather create a new economy in service to a new way of living, and that way of living would value every aspect of human experience. And we developed a framework. I'm actually kind of flipping this over now, but we started just thinking through like an ecosystem, started thinking through like the different means of exchange and their sort of ecosystem levels. So we started thinking that gift economies and sharing essentially and time making was sort of like the photosynthesis that could turn all the really abundant resources of people's time and talents and latent talents that you haven't had a chance to develop yet, and underused resources with sort of the photosynthesis that turns it into plants. And then and that's what you're using for really abundant kinds of resources. And then when you get to things that are a little bit more scarce, like local businesses having storefront space in a popular area of town, or buying something like coffee that has to be imported, it makes sense to have some competition, but you also want to create a sort of a friendlier local economy to support local players and sort of incentivize staying local and give people a break for staying small. So then you sort of get into the bunnies, which we consider like price-based mutual credit. So that would work like time banking. So in time banking, we're a network extending credit to each other in time. I do a service for you, and you give me an hour's worth of credit for an hour's worth of service, and I can take that hour's credit and I can have you come and teach me how to use a computer program. So in time banking, we just exchange straight up time, and we don't put a price on it, and it's valued equally, and we use that to value all these abundant things. But then in a business-oriented price-based mutual credit, my business might buy a refrigerator from your business for $1,000 worth of credit, and I'd owe that back in goods and services to the rest of the network. But we pay taxes on it and sort of do it on the up and up with the government and the IRS and regulations. And then we get into like the dollar kinds of currencies and the euros. We consider those to be like the wolves, the apex predator. And we don't necessarily, it makes sense in some ways to have some scarce currency that replaced trust that you can use like across big distances, but we don't need that for very many things. Michelle, can you say what you say about light and heavy, like heavy being local and light being global, or?
Right. So this is something we talk about in the P2P Foundation. We call it cosmolocalism. So we have either localization, but then.
Michelle, could you speak up?
All right. Yeah, so if you only do localization, you miss out on a lot of stuff. For example, in Ireland, there's not enough iodine in the food. So people that, quality is big oysters. Yeah. So you don't want a world where there is no trade at all. But the rule that we propose is that when it's heavy, it's light. And when it's, when it's light, it's global. When it's heavy, it's local, right? So it's combining the global sharing of knowledge, science, technology, but then actually making stuff as close as possible to the place of need. And today we have technologies like 3D printing and lots of kind of machines that go in the same direction, which are much cheaper to access than before. So that means small co-ops, small local initiatives can organize micro-manufacturing and actually make a lot of things here that we use to do globally. Right? Think about the good example was the cod, I think. So they fish in Newfoundland, they send the cod to China for processing, and then it comes back to the restaurants. It's totally insane. And a tennis ball has like 80,000 miles of transport behind it. Right? It's just a crazy system that is destroying the planet. And by going to a cosmolocal form of organization, we can save probably 80% of matter and energy that we use today.
Thank you. So, so this kind of co-op that we have created is legally a co-op, and it's based on like sort of enhanced core principles. So based on the cooperative principles, but also core values of time banking, including redefining work, recognizing that all work is valuable, whether it's really abundant or scarce. Everyone is an asset, has an asset. Reciprocity is essential. Community is essential. So I'm just kind of looking through this. And that the problem is in our current economy, only one or two of the fundamental types of work are valued. And these are the sort of frameworks that we're looking at for kinds of work. So productive work is what we tend to think of it often as our job. It's how we feed ourselves and our families and house them. So it can be your job getting money to do those things, or you could be growing your food or making your clothes, or so it's sort of meeting your material needs. And then there's care work, taking care of future generations, older generations, people who are sick, people who have disabilities. Community work, doing collective things in your neighborhood and community. And self-work, so the work you're doing to build your skills or educate yourself. And then in this framework, the people and organizations who analyzed all this kind of work, it's someone we met, Anne Snick, who's been, who's actually working on starting a man pilot in Brussels, Belgium. But she worked with an organization that studied women's work from around the world, like in a lot of different contexts, and found these essential kinds of work. And then another kind of work that really exists primarily because our culture is really skewed about work and finance is keeper of the balance. Like it's sort of a whole other layer of work to actually manage the kinds of work you need to do and the resources you have available to do it. Mm-hmm.
how would you do that? How would you recognize the time bank with the work of like a mother or caregiver?
So that's something that we're going to explore this week, and it's one of the questions that we think needs to be answered. So the idea with mutual aid networks, actually we came up with a little phrase for a workshop that we did recently, serious fun. The idea is really create a place where we can really experiment with this stuff, and we will talk about it today in the budgeting piece, and then Thursday when we talk about the work-life balance piece. So I'll come back to this a little bit, but the way I see it, so we left the week to just evolve as it goes, but some of the things we had to schedule ahead of time because we want to invite community in. So Tuesday and Thursday is the day that I decided would work best for the people I knew who want to come and participate in these things. So we're kind of going between the collective and bigger picture sort of geographic spread between the collective and the individual. So yesterday we really focused on the resources that we have here in Madison where we have deficits and assets. And then today we'll focus in on sort of what constitutes a basic human livelihood for people here, and then come back into complex systems tomorrow and sort of get more conceptual, and then Thursday get back into sort of work-life design, and then go that. So we'll just see what emerges from it, because I think the visions need to be connected. If we're going to be, we're going to be redesigning work, we have to learn how to do these things sort of simultaneously. And one of the things, so we're working today, we made a worksheet to represent this stuff, and so we're working through it. It's actually quite interesting. So when after we do the overview and the recap of yesterday, we'll go into this a bit more. So this is exactly the focus for these next for today, is this balance between different types of work and kinds of compensation. So, so we realized it's in that trophic model that I showed you, it does map in some ways to the different kinds of work in terms of scarcity and abundance, but that's not what I'm looking for right now. So what we have recognized is so the work redesign assistance I just referred to, and the robust budgeting, or we're calling it posterity budgeting, that we're focusing on today, are some of the processes that help people identify how the different tools that are available can work. So we also focus on how to be sure people have what they need to come together and do a project and identify the work that needs to be done and delegate it and be compensated for it. And then also assistance in developing community investment. So then the resources that you manage are time banking, which I already referred to in the very abundant realm, sharing in the creating more abundance and really driving things towards sharing as much as possible. But then price-based mutual credit, when you need to get more competitive and get into businesses and highly professionalized services. And part of that is just to be sure that we're not just doing things that evade taxes for all kinds of reasons. And then community savings pools, so based on mutual aid societies, and a lot of different models where people pool their money and make it available. And you can also do fundraising and have enterprises that feed the pool, and some different creative ways of bringing in money and then allocating it to people based on different agreements. So it can be no interest loans for health expenses, for example, or it can be grants, or it can be to pay people to do some of the work you need for a project, or it can be to support any kind of project. So anyhow, so the Mutual Aid Network is a legal, social, and financial framework for making these things more self-sustaining and redesigning work. And this mapping summit we organized for a number of reasons. And one is we're really working on operationalizing this, really developing the tools that we need to actually conduct projects in this way. And some of what we need to do is have good processes for knowing what the baseline conditions are in a location. So our strategy for mutual aid networks is to have a lot of individual mutual aid networks in different places around the world, starting with different strengths and different limitations, starting with different goals, because it's really a framework to accomplish your goals. We want to see how it works under what local conditions, every pilot project is sharing everything they do, sharing all their evaluation, all the materials they use to support what they do. So Scott here from Lansing is working on an energy project. We have Michael in Providence who's working on food distribution. We have Allied Co-op here that's working on bringing food into a food desert. We have Lehigh Valley Health Network in Pennsylvania that's in a federally qualified health center, and it's about health and wellness needs. And we have one in Hull, UK that's going to be the City of Culture next year. And they're doing a lot of food production stuff, but knitting together a lot of interesting cooperative and economic initiatives. So there are a lot of different projects right now just starting up and linking up together. And so this mapping exercise that we're doing here, we're looking to learn and do some system design and develop some tools, and then share it with other communities so they can use what works for them and keep building on it. So one of our, we had set some intentions. I already mentioned some of the ones about being replicable and learning from the process, using this process as, to create tools for education. Some of the forward action that we intend to come out of this is just using the networks that we have. We have a time bank and a transportation network and a transportation coordinator, and we can use that to do better distribution in the short term. In the medium term, to work toward establishing what would constitute something like a basic human livelihood for people in the area that we're mapping, and work on mechanisms to make that happen. Long term, using mutual aid networks to incubate enterprise in the area. So where there are gaps in local food production or energy production or housing availability, we can create enterprises to fill those and have them be cooperatively owned, something that's by and for the communities that they're in. So that was long. Thank you for bearing with me on the orientation, and I'm wanting to move into a recap of yesterday now, if you're ready to do that. So, yeah, come up if you want to. And I don't know why my camera's not working right now. Would you like to share your screen?
I could do that. I could just talk through what we did and did not do as well. I have something I could put on the screen.
Yeah, it would be.
But I could also show you. I could get there on your computer.
Okay, cool.
It's easier.
Yeah. So let me see. For some reason, oh yeah. So yeah, I get there on my computer. That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. And go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, it is not showing here.
Yeah. Is there a way you get rid of this?
Yeah. Here, hang on a second. Let me make sure I'm doing this properly. I don't know if I can totally get rid of it. Oh yeah. Okay. There, it's at the bottom.
Very good. Okay.
There.
Okay. Okay. So Lynn and I came here with a technique that we had been working on and that we worked on with some people in Nova Scotia. That was sort of like our first big experience trying to get this to work. And is called mapping resource flows. And I don't think it came through very clearly. We had a really interesting set of conversations that sort of swirled in and out of each other. There were bunches of conversations going on at the same time. And I'm going to try to summarize what I got out of it, and maybe Justice and Paul could like fill in a little bit. But basically what everybody except us thought it was, and Paul, who else I think understood, thought it was asset mapping. They kept saying asset mapping. Maybe that's what people should have done. Okay, this is not asset mapping. Well, that's part of it. You know, because the more important part of this is figuring out not only the assets, what can be provided, but what are the needs, and trying to put the needs and the what people can provide and what people need, and put that together, and then see how we can get things to flow, you know, and start getting an economy happening. So I don't think that really came across very well, and so we had a bunch of contributions to that spreadsheet, which is out there, and some of that stuff happened. But then as the conversation swirled around, there was a whole lot of stuff around that was very interesting around city politics, land use, zoning, and a lot of it was circling around like, well, you know, so like there was like the question was, well, why are we doing this? Where are we going with this? And it was sort of like, okay, so if we start here, you know, I think the thing was how do we make a full cycle with some part of this and say, okay, here we are now. Where do we want this to go? How can we get there? What are the steps that will take us? Am I capturing some of the conversation here? You know, what are the obstacles? You know, what are the obstacles that you don't think of? You know, like trying to know the ropes in Madison, you know, which we certainly don't. So it was like trying to make sense out of all this stuff that was in the air. I don't know if I can do it all justice, because we had this very sort of like limited view, and then there's this very expansive view. So maybe this will come out in the course of the week. I'm still thinking about very fragments of the conversation, you know, that I want to see come out a little bit more during the week. So the conversation for me was some combination of enjoyable and bewildering. And I think other people, who was the guy that was, there was another person that really put it into words very well, you know, at the same time, it's like you know, like bunches of people were slightly frustrated. You know what? You know the guy I was talking about.
Yes, Boyd.
Boyd, he's online.
Huh?
He's online.
What's the name?
Boyd is online.
Boyd?
Boyd, yeah.
Boyd.
He's
Yeah. So Boyd tried to put it together at one point, like what he was feeling in the midst of the conversation. So I don't think we ever pulled it together very well. So I want to jump for a minute, and then maybe Boyd, if you're online, maybe you can take over and explain what you were feeling as you were going through this. But I want, because something happened at the end, and Laura pulled a whole bunch of things together for me. Okay, because there was one organization that was not on any of the lists that is really central to a bunch of different resource flows that will actually give, I think, you the idea of what some parts of a resource flow network, and that's the feed kitchen. So there's all kinds of stuff that go through the feed kitchen. What they got is, what do they got? They actually they do some economic organizing, but they have a community. They have a commercial kitchen. So all these things. So we got carts for community, and we got food for all. And these are two examples of organizations that need a commercial kitchen. This is a big thing. This also happened out by us in the Griffiths. There's a woman named Sue Noble who organized what she calls a food enterprise center, which I think is what Feed Kitchen is part of what they call themselves. And so it's like there's all these different food-oriented things, and they need a commercial kitchen. You know, so it's like this big thing. So this So here we are in the mapping summit, and we're getting food from carts, and we're getting food, recovered food from Food for All, from Epic, is that the organization?
That's the major
You know.
one, there's some others.
Beg pardon?
That's where they get the
That's what we,
huge bulk of
that's
it,
what we
but
got
there's
from
a few
yesterday.
others, and there's more people that want to donate, but there's no.
That's what we got from yesterday, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So this is an example of the flows through an area where you've got all these organizations that need this commercial kitchen, but then there's all these other organizations, people, community centers, and things like that need food. So that's like an example of sort of like the difference between mapping the resource flows and just listing the assets. Okay? So Boyd, you there?
He was great.
Yeah,
He couldn't.
That's okay. It's okay, but I don't know what the rest of you was thinking. You know, what am I capturing what was happening?
Yeah, actually, I think it went right. I think there was just at the end what we kind of ran into was that we were limited. I mean, we had 3 people from Madison and 3 people who had never, who were not from here. So like for us to sit here and try and go through.
Yeah.
Well, I think that
Flow, we were trying to go through flow
Yeah.
diagrams about, and it was like, okay, so we're limited to our
Yeah.
total scope. But what we were able to do though, and I think at the end, so the first thing we were talking about, the first thing we said is like, all right, so what, in order to do this, to capture the economic flows of a region, what we had to figure out what would we be looking at. So we started doing just kind of a general brain dump of all the things that we would want to see. And so the question then started becoming around some of the social political, around like, well, those things already exist. It's not like we have to go for all these, everything we were saying that we would like to see on the map. Yeah. So like the question is like, all right, so if we already have access to all this information, how are we going to use it? But then I think at the end, when we actually started thinking, well, we have all those organizations on the chart, why don't we start with us and start saying, well, what can we provide? What do we need? What are each one of those organizations in the spirit of what your diagram says? What are the people who are there and represented there? What are the things that they can provide? What are the things that they need? Let's start with that. And then that's kind of, to me, where we finished. So I thought, all things considered, I thought it went well.
Yeah, but your point about that there's a whole bunch of people that should be here that are not here was well taken.
Well, because you have 2 sides of production.
Well, except we didn't invite a whole bunch of people here,
right,
because it's a mapping
producers.
summit.
Yeah, right, producers and recipients, so like those 2 folks were necessary, but I think we started with each other and just like, all right, let's just start with us.
So should that lead into the next part? Because this like feeds into what we want to build and sort of like views of it. So yeah, I'll come to you in just a second. Because I pictured this, and it might become clearer when you see our software. And I think this is awesome. And the feed kitchen it's just an oversight. We're inviting people. A lot of people with the feed kitchen helped start the time bank 10 years ago, but that we meant to represent that north side food production corridor. So totally. So the idea is like eventually I've been picturing something like what you're saying, Justice, is where you could look into sort of a profile of a participant in a mutual aid network, and you could sort of see them almost as a flower, like their central sort of profile, but then their needs and their assets and like how they match up together. And I think you'll start to be able to visualize some of, I think that there's some really elegant ways that this, hopefully could come together between the collective and the individual, mapping assets and needs of each and seeing how they mesh together. So anyhow, that was, I don't know if that made any sense. That it hopefully will make more sense when we go into the next part. Xander, what do you want to say?
For me, I think the challenges of yesterday came more around the format of, so 2 things as an amateur facilitator, like there were 2, I consider myself an amateur facilitator. I've been doing it for 6 years, and I don't like to be the facilitator because I'm loud and I'm opinionated. And there was another woman who afterwards identified herself as a facilitator. And nobody stepped up when when Stephanie, you left yesterday and said like, all right, somebody's keeping stacks, somebody's keeping time.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge issue because people were participating at a lot of different levels. And certain people talked a lot more than other folks. And there was value in that for sure, but then there was also frustration in that for sure. To the extent that even, I think maybe Lynn, you asked Garrett Lee if he left out of frustration. You had that feeling, and I had that feeling too, almost that people chose to leave or like priority.
Definitely, just when you left that point after you said you were frustrated.
Well,
Also said he had a
I mean, I heard what Woody was saying. I kind of concur with what he was saying. I mean, that was the deal. Because I felt like, in terms of drifting and intent of what we were trying to capture, it was taking the life of the song. It's like, all right, so let's pick one thing on this thing, and we're going to pick the layers that we're looking for.
So I'm sorry, I've generally been like sort of facilitating stuff, and I had to go do this work thing. I should have just set it up, but we won't do that again. We'll just like make sure that we have intentions and it's clear.
It's partly my fault too, because I didn't step up the facility. I don't know the people. I don't know what people are doing exactly valuable. I'm very sensitive about everything at this point. Because I don't have enough experience, But I think that was the conclusion of at least the facility people who had experience in facilitating is we needed a facility.
And you did say something to me, but I've never done this before, so I didn't know you were talking about.
Yeah, no, I just really just had an assumption. I had an assumption that people were a lot more, I mean, it's just, you don't know what you don't know. I just had an assumption that people were a lot more clear, and I thought we were just mapping those things. I thought we were plugging in those things, our 0 degrees of separation and our 1 degree of separation, and then seeing what questions emerge. So I thought we had it, like, kind of set up, but
I think my take on this, thinking about this, I think it actually, the challenge was that we did that really fast because it was such a small group.
Yeah.
And so I think at that point we were like, all right, so what next?
Yeah.
And I think it was more about the what next that was frustrating, you know what I'm saying?
Well, let's move on to the what next, unless there's more that you have to.
There's one other thing that I got out of the day that I wanted to this is maybe old news to you, but Justice went and showed me on the map, there's this geographical area is like it's in pockets and it's somewhat, it's like this strange shape through here, that where is the geographical area that you want to focus on, and that was not at all clear to me before. It is somewhat clear to me now. That was really useful.
I just wanted to say, like, no blame, no shame.
Yeah.
What was lacking, in my opinion, is a set of group agreements around how we're participating, because I think myself and others in the room would have happily stepped up and facilitated, but we didn't know how to act.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to act or so. Yeah. And so that's what I think still needs to happen. Is there's not even anything about like, do we respect one another in this space? Do we talk over one another in this space? What is the protocol here? I have no idea.
Yeah, okay, so we'll do that before the work session today. Yeah. Can we go on to is there anything else that people want to say about yesterday?
The last one is just the why, and I think that's what came up a lot. Or like we kept coming back to like, okay, what does step 2 look like? What does the sense-making process after we have the map look like? And people have different priorities there. And so I felt like because we had 3 people out of town, 3 people in town, that vision was unclear. And so it felt like because this experience, there's different people in the room each time, that it seems really important to reestablish a collaborative vision, a collaborative why, which to operate off of. There was some intentions read yesterday, but also I haven't shared my intention in this space yet. So I mean, it feels hard for people to know where I'm coming from personally. It seems like it would be challenging for people when I have my prerogative, which is kind of to learn about the facilitation of an event like this. And so that was what I was like, let's just do it. I see 3 different ways that we could jump into this exercise right now, but some folks thought it really important to talk about what's that second step look like, how are we prioritizing. We have all these different things we can map or focus on. We can start with food, we can start with air and soil. How do you prioritize that when we don't have a collaborative vision? It becomes very challenging.
Yeah, I'm very busy, so I know you send me lots of stuff, and I didn't read everything. But for me, this has not been a mapping summit. This has been what kind of mapping do we want, right? Because, I've been to mapping summits where people actually do mapping. I think it only works where people already know how and what to map. Because otherwise, people, just go round and round. Yeah, so it depends on your expectations. So I think this is more like an exercise to connect people in the region to each other and get to know each other, know what kind of mapping or what the way forward would be. But given that the time is already going forward, I don't see as mapping actually. Right? We're talking about mapping.
Well, the intention is to do both. I mean, so last week as we were, we've been having weekly calls to prepare, and as we had a subgroup to talk about what to map, people were really busy and realized it'd be easier to do that when we're in person. So the idea behind this is get as far as we can. So we listed out some things to map on there, and so that seemed like the questions would emerge about what's prioritized and so again, I feel like it's the fact that we didn't have facilitation yesterday, and I apologize about that, but I'd like us to move forward with and establish what we can do together this week. And I think that it looks like you did get some progress made, and you have a spreadsheet. Can we see that? Well, anyhow, it's fine.
The spreadsheet leak is out. It's pretty messy right now.
Yeah.
It's a mix of imaginary things and real things. But I think it was starting to sort of come together at the bottom of the spreadsheet. My intention is I'm going to go back and try to pull things out of that, of what we did yesterday in the conversation, and what I see the rest of the week, and see where we can go with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I'm not sounding unhappy. I don't like to rah-rah my way through something. I want to be self-critical and critical of the process. And that's in order to improve the process. So it's a word from it. Lubella. Yes.
I just wanted to take one more stab at this because
you speak up a bit.
I've been trying to figure out what we're doing, and from looking at that now, I'm gonna try one more time.
Yes.
Okay, so we're taking the organizations that already exist, and we're saying where the connections already are, so that we can establish where connections can be made in the future. But where I lose it is how you're saying that we need the desires in there, the wants in there as well, before we get to that first part.
So, the way the model works is that you only see a flow, the flows aren't really explicit that way. They're implicit, you have a need for food and you have an offer for food. That's a flow, but
it's a potential flow.
It's a potential flow.
But what we're doing now, though, is we're dealing with the connections that are already established.
But not really.
So what we're doing is, first of all, we just decided to start with who's in the room, and then what are the networks that we have now? So what are the networks we have now, and what are the resources that we have now, and what are the needs? But it doesn't mean those connections are being made all the time.
Yeah.
So our short-term goal is to make some of those connections. So our short-term goal could be, here's so Allied Co-op is in the room. And the feed kitchen is in the room. And this food source, what's it called that we're getting all our food from?
Oh, Food for All Day.
Food for All is in the room. So between those three, and Laura Garrett is in the room, and someone with a truck is in the room. So between those parties, we could be getting food to Allied Drive really regularly. See what I mean? Like with better flows. So that's where we know the assets, and we know the needs, and we know the people in the room.
Well, that limits us to only the people in the room.
It starts us with the people in the room. So that's why we had the blue, which was the 0 degrees of separation. Those are the room. And then the orange were the people that everyone suggested isn't here, that they have a relationship with. So when I left, my understanding was we're going to map the 0 degrees of separation and know what's there. And then we're going to map the 1 degree of separation and start to see the resource flows, like what Bob and Lynn just described. Like there are current flows and there are potential flows. And we see the potential flows based on the assets and the needs that are there. There are current partnerships and there are potential partnerships.
Right. Yeah.
So we're looking, so when we get that mapped and get an understanding of the level of partnership and the level of relationship and the potential flows, we see what we can act on today, we see what we can act on tomorrow. Today we can ask these partners to consider this thing, tomorrow we can ask some people to consider becoming partners because they can enhance that flow. Does that make sense?
Yes. Just one clarification, but you are making distinctions between the established flows and the potential flows.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that will be easy to.
Yeah. No. What you said was actually correct. Those are actual relationships.
Right. This is already happening.
Yeah, that's already happening.
Then we could use blue and then go through and say, well, that might work.
Yeah. The reason I like that is because it was the first thing that I pulled out of the air that you actually pulled out of the air for me. That was things on the table that did connect in a useful resource flow. Okay. And so it might make give people the idea of at least what we're trying to do with resource flows. It's not the only thing to do, and what people did in the Nova Scotia situation is they looked at the resource flows that are happening now, and then they did 2 different versions of a future set of resource flows that didn't exist yet. They say, okay, this is like sort of like a simple version of the future, and then here is our more grandiose version of the future.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Xander?
Can I break in and make a comment?
Yes, please.
It's Steve in Chicago. Bob, I really like the diagram that you did. I can see that it's like the 25,000 foot overview, and I can imagine all the detail that goes in there. It sounds like a lot of that detail was talked about yesterday and yesterday afternoon sessions and possibly last night. Not too much of it made it onto the spreadsheet. So in terms of learning to work virtually, we need to maybe pay some attention to that. But I like the direction of this conversation. I agree with Stephanie that what we need to do is we need to start with who's in the room, and who, and what the resources and the needs are that we can identify now, and then move on from there and develop a more robust map from there. Conclude.
Thanks. Did you have something?
Yeah, I kind of want to move this conversation. I don't want to bog down this conversation, I guess. But I mean, with 0 degrees, 1 degrees of connection, I think that was a huge hindrance yesterday because blue people are supposedly in the room, but they weren't.
Well, they were the first day. I mean, everyone's not coming every day, and they're not invited to come every day. It's not for everyone every day.
No, I understand that, Stephanie, but it's confusing because people will be coming in and out of the space as we think about this mapping experience throughout the week, and also past this week. Like, those are going to change. Like, who's willing to come to the table is going to change depending on how utile they see it, depending on what focus is chosen, depending, like we have this list of different potential maps, and there's air quality, housing, food, soil, land, energy, recycling centers, and we're not going to get to all of these in depth. And so depending on who we pick, that list is going to change, and whether there's 0 degree connection or 1 degree connection or 2 degree, that's variable. And so it's a level of complexity that made it quite challenging, I think, because yesterday I felt like there was 3 different ways we could proceed. We could have just use the people in the room. There are 6 people in the room. We could just go wants and needs and just see how it plays out. This is a good experiment.
Yeah. So I just want to, I do want to keep moving forward because we have people online and we're going to be together present for the work session today where we can establish more of that stuff. So I think there are a couple things, and one is that you weren't here the first day, which is a disadvantage for having seen some of the framing, and we're trying to recap it each day. But when I'm talking about in the room, I'm not just, so those were all people who were here the first day, but this is also like 10 years of working relationships, and that's a thing that is kind of, has been really difficult to communicate, and it keeps coming up as we discuss this stuff where people are like, well, you know, we're talking about what Ally Co-op needs or what Ally Drive needs, and they're not here. Well, but, you know, some of them were here the first day, some are coming back, and we're one of the founding partners of Ally Co-op, and we have a town hall meeting there every month, and that I can show you years worth of notes and stuff that are about collecting, you know, what people in the neighborhood want, and we go door to door there and stuff. So a lot of the blue that were in the room are like a 10-year relationship, and I hear what you're saying about, you know, it shifts who's in the room at any given time and what the focus is, but there's some history established. And there's history with the Dane County Time Bank. This is a project that's born out of the Dane County Time Bank. A lot of the very immediate term things are things we're going to do with the existing time banking network with some priorities that have already emerged from different communities over time. So I just want to stress that because I feel like whenever the conversation comes up, there's sort of an assumption, maybe it's an assumption, maybe I feel an assumption from some of the people who are new to it that, oh yeah, we're just talking about it sort of for the first time and talking about something that we want to go impose on a neighborhood, and it's really not the case. So yeah, some of these relationships, like I said, the people from the Feed Kitchen and that Northside Food Corridor are a lot of the people who started the time bank 10 years ago, who've moved into this like more intensive direction. Like a lot of this is emerging out of stuff like that. Like people have kind of like, you know, been working together loosely or tightly and going through like a longer term. Yeah, there's just a lot of history here in a lot of the different relationships and in a lot of the work. This isn't a brand new thing that we're doing this week. This is a piece of work on this longer trajectory. And just to Michelle's point, we're in Tuesday on something that goes till Sunday or Saturday. We're going to map some stuff, but first we're going to work through these complex questions about what to map. And I think it's completely appropriate that they emerged yesterday. They would have emerged more helpfully if I had made sure there was going to be good facilitation yesterday. So I'm apologizing for that. We're going to move forward on that piece. And so I'd like to keep going with what the context, you know, what we've imagined the context to be for the rest of the week. It is fluid, so it can change. But I feel like if I can show you some of the budget tools and the work-life design, and we can get a picture of how it interacts with sort of this bigger resource flow stuff, it just might help. I mean, it's all going to have to emerge. Like, that's the point of having us spend a week together. Like, we didn't have answers going in, or we would have needed to do this. So it's all going to emerge, and the way that it emerges, we have to sort of help structure too.
That's all super awesome. And don't feel sorry. We're all here together. We're all mutually accountable to one another. At least in my impression, in my space. And the end of my comment was actually going to be towards. I don't think we needed to go into that, because I think if we can establish some common contentions about how we're acting in this space. Because I think the question comes to who can posit the relationships, who can say, like, can I speak on behalf of my organization here, or am I speaking as a peer here? And that's the question sometimes, because that's going to dictate what needs and offers come to the table, because there's a level of trust. If I'm positing on behalf of my organization, if I was part of Student Labor Action Coalition, and I say, we have this potential offer, and people took me seriously in this space, I would be accountable to that. You know, that came up in the debrief yesterday. And so that's why I feel like if we start with common ground for how do we speak to one another, and then we go back to the vision and say, why are we doing this again? Then we'll have a really good basis to get into the how and have a really productive weekend into the what.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So, we have 55 minutes. If you need to grab coffee or something, go ahead. And I'm gonna get to the front place on the screen. Okay. So here's an example of, let's see if this thing works. So yeah, with this idea of moving back and forth between the collective and the individual, as we're mapping this geographic area, and that's one of the questions that we've identified that will be emerging, is what is the geographic area we need to be able to map. Hang on, I need to open this in some other way. Oops. So as we figure out what geographic area to map, I think one of the questions is, and the reason we chose this area, here, I'll turn my camera on. Well, I don't know. I guess you guys won't be able to see it. I'm going to pull up a picture of the map. Okay. Hang on, I'm just trying to get this picture bigger. All right. Well, you can see the orange part if you're online, but yeah, the reason we picked this, these sections to map is there are. Hello?
Is there a link?
Sorry, I paused the screen, so you should be able to see it now. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, the reason we marked these sections on the map is there are strong sort of efforts, resources, relationships in all of these places that can be connected more thoroughly. So, for example, Allied Community Co-op is in the area that has no food access whatsoever, no school, no neighborhood center, difficult transportation, but tons of expertise and understanding and years of development of Allied Community Co-op and people being really active in the neighborhood and being really creative with resources for a lot of reasons. Park Street, there's Badger Rock School, Center for Resilient Cities has been doing stuff there, and a lot of potential relationships and current relationships. Then between West and Central Madison, we have Fix Co-working, which is focused on providing space for complementary care. So health and wellness-oriented co-working space. Horizon Co-working, which is much more tech-oriented, but also oriented toward redesigning work. And then the Willie Street neighborhood where the Time Bank has its office at Social Justice Center. It's my neighborhood. Willie Street Co-op has been a strong partner. Sector 67 is out this way, Makerspace. Up this way, Feed Kitchen and the Northside Planning Council and the food corridor that they want to create. And then out this way, we have a capacity building project with the Time Bank developing neighborhood care teams where people will take responsibility for the well-being of people in the neighborhood through time banking. So that's why we chose this geographic area, realizing that, again, we could take advantage of our strong partnerships and strong relationships and correlations between assets and needs to develop way better, more equitable resource flows. So that is our immediate term goal. Then also what we're doing today, looking at what population should we think of here in this formula and how do we approach it? But looking at what would constitute a basic human livelihood for everyone. And we're just going to have to, so that this is for everyone, and I think it can help guide our process. But we've been using a lot of sociocracy, experimenting with sociocracy in mutual aid networks. And one of the things that we do in our decision making is we ask these three basic questions. Is it good enough for now? Is it safe enough to try? When will we revisit it? And it's just really helped us move forward, because what we're aiming for is really complicated, and it's not something that people have cracked really every day, trying to change our economy and our work lives. So I think we need to just decide a good enough pool to start with, like, to understand what would constitute basic human livelihood. Maybe it's just the people right in this immediate corridor. Maybe it's everyone in Dane County. Maybe it's everyone in Madison. But really starting to get a handle on what does it take to meet some basic human needs here. And there's some math, some median sort of housing price stuff involved, but there's also some imagination about what can we do to strengthen our sharing capacity and our capacity to use time banking and other kinds of cooperative ownership in order to meet that basic human income or basic human livelihood. And I'm saying basic human livelihood on purpose because basic human income, we want to wean ourselves off of the need for money. I don't want to depend on my government to give me enough money to live. I would love it if we had a government that wanted me to live a good life, and that would be entirely different. But I don't want to create more intensive dependencies on governments, banks, institutions. I would rather depend on my neighbors. So that's where we are, and then we're talking about basic human livelihood for that reason. I am going to show you a couple tools that we've made and intend to develop further, and I'm hoping that you can help put your brains on this question today about ways to come up with that formula. And we have a start, and it's this spreadsheet. And Laura, you were here. We did this for me over at the last summit, right?
Yeah, the sort of first stab at it.
Yeah.
I think you guys then kind of got it.
Yeah, it's getting better. But yeah, this is just really basic, and sorry, it's really hard to see here, but I'm just gonna step you through what it's all about. So last year at the summit, we did this for me as a big group, and I started calling it my posh-terity budget because it's how I'm gonna live a posh life under my self-imposed austerity, which is choosing not to have a job that's a full-time job and instead try to do the work that I really want to do. What we did was we sort of broke down all our basic needs. So this is food, this is space. I should probably just make a new one. I was going to try to just put it on this, where it is on the screen so I didn't have to rewrite it, but it's so hard to read. Wellness, transportation. And we have it broken down into year one, or like now, a year from now, 2 years from now.
ultimately we'll have it go out 3 years because I think it's just going to be more interesting that way. And what we did was we went through and put what I'm spending roughly on these things. I'm going to pull up my actual one because I don't want to be trying to think about the amounts as I go. It's not something I think about. But anyhow, one thing that was nice is the first thing that I said to the group is like, so I have a bunch of needs, and one of the needs is I hate doing things like this. I hate making a budget. I hate thinking about money. The only reason I work in economic things at all is that I hate it, and I want to change the situation and have it be so it doesn't have to be a focus for us in our lives. So I'm hoping that we succeed well enough that I can stop focusing on it like within the year. But in the meantime, we have to focus on it really intently. And one of the things that was really nice is here, maybe this, let me see. Not going to be another PDF. Nope, I just have to go find this spreadsheet, sorry. It's just going to take me a minute. Okay, this should be in here. Budgeting spreadsheet, okay. So yeah, we've changed the format, and today I expect to change it even more.
Nice and visible.
Yeah, I'm trying to shrink it to make it worse. But okay, so I'm just going to put in some of these amounts from here. So food, I had, oh yeah, I should move it up. All right, so, how do I? All right, so these were my expenses in year one, and people helped me plug it in. And then what we did is we went through each place or each category and looked in a year's time with me knowing sort of what's already available and what's likely to become available in that year's time. We reduced my food costs from 600 to 350, thinking that I could have people cook for me in the time bank, and I would spend 50 time bank hours instead of, or I'd spend $50, like I would save $50. No, I'd spend 50 time bank hours. Space reduced from 600 to 300. I want to make this smaller. Sorry, I want you to be able to see the whole thing. I know it's visible now, but it's not visible enough.
If you're in Google, just okay.
Pardon?
If you're in Google, you can just go to the 3 bars and reduce the resolution.
Oh, okay. So,
upper right hand. Got it.
okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to do it this way. So, yeah, so in year one, I cut 250 off my food expenses and need to spend 50 time bank hours in order to have people cook for me. If we were doing something where we had food for all and had some sort of free meal or a sliding scale meal in a space like this on a regular basis, for example, that's another way I can save money on my food. Another example would be, so yeah, we need a better tool than this clearly because we would need to see it all at once so we can do it. But so what I'd be doing is like going ahead and thinking of a way that we can color code it. So I can reduce, so always for plan A, you go to sharing. What's the most abundant? So here I made this formula, like an inverted pyramid. So plan A is for abundance. And the most abundant option is sharing. So every time we need something, that's where we look first. Plan B, bank your time or stuff. So this would be time banking or just swaps. Plan C, credit instead of debt. Price-based mutual credit. Do I need something that's like a highly professionalized service, or do I have to get it from a business and maybe I can use that? Plan D, decentralize the risk or de-escalate the stress. If I need money and it has to be money, is there a way I can tap into a savings pool for And then plan F, if all else fails, get an effing job. So what we really need our own money for, we have a job doing. So this is kind of a way to create a bridge from where we are to where we want to be, where we don't need to rely on as much money and we don't have to have as much of a job. And it also takes employers out of the equation for, like, a lot of times people look at time banking, and time banking is best suitable for labor and people's time. But doing that in an employment context is problematic for all kinds of reasons, good reasons and bad reasons. So what we are doing, I think, is creating a way to complement your variety of resources that you can access, create a situation. I mean, a lot of jobs aren't offering full-time employment anyhow anymore, but create a situation where we can sort of afford to split up our jobs. So maybe I have to have a crappy job to meet my monetary expenses, but if I can work 20 hours at that instead of 40 hours of that, then there are 2 crappy jobs for 2 people to meet their money expenses, and they each get to do some other things that are more fun in the meantime to meet some of their other needs. Does that make sense? Okay. So does anybody have any questions? Or I want a better format for this. I think it works better if I just draw it up here. I shouldn't be trying to use it on here. So I'm going to make it little for the people who can see it on the screen here. So so food went from 600 to 350 plus 50 in time bank hours plus, I guess we were doing like a dollar amount. So it wouldn't be 50 time bank hours, but it'd be like 150 displaced by time bank hours, 100 displaced by sharing. So some of the other things that are, so the realistic thing is I can get people to make food for me for time bank hours. Maybe we will start doing some free or sliding scale meals. And then also the sharing piece at the Social Justice Center, which we're talking about creating a mutual aid network with the SJC as a key partner. We want to create a business plan for a CSA drop spot. That's something that's in demand for community supported agriculture. And then we want to have a swap upstairs in a really publicly accessible venue so people can always come and swap things for other things, or they can put in checks off their time bank account or gift certificates for services. And we want to put food into the swap from people's gardens, from the CSA drop spot when things aren't picked up, when people, everyone in their CSA share ends up getting stuff they don't like or won't use. But there's definitely going to be more shared food available. Then in the space line, I don't remember why that went down. Some of it went down, and one of the advantages of doing this with a group of people is that it's also about just people supporting you to save money where you can too. So people shared ways that I could reduce my phone bill by contracting with a different provider, ways that I was going to reduce my space cost because I'm traveling and I'm going to put it for rental. Some of the others are like creativity, the amount of money I spend on going to see shows and things like that could be displaced by time bank hours through getting more people in the time bank. So this is an example. We're gonna do this in a much more comprehensible and thorough way this evening. When we have a workshop, we'll write a big one up on the board and have someone be an example. And today we'll do some work toward getting a handle on sort of what would constitute a formula for a basic human livelihood. And then I also want to show you another aspect of this, but I'll just pause for a moment and see if anyone has questions or comments or any way you want to clarify things. Anyone? All right. Michelle?
Have you ever thought about using co-budget food, like it's hiring, where everybody in the network can pool some resources, and then people can make proposals that we want to do this and this for the community?
Yes. Yes, definitely. It's a piece of it. Do you want to tell me where to find co-budgeting online so I can pull it up? Does it have a dash? Okay. Yes, it's definitely. Oh, .co. Okay. Yes, it's definitely something that we want to do, and that's part of what we want to sort of see emerge is how, so when we establish a basic human livelihood kind of formula, and we already have some mechanisms for how we can shift wealth around, how people could put money into their local pool and get time bank hours out, and people can shift based on what they have access to and what kind of work they want to do. Kind of get a sense of how big or what characteristics of a group need to exist in order to like mutualize, in order to really meet everyone's needs in a comprehensive way. That makes sense. By like what sort of level of collaboration do you need in order to have the right diversity of assets and needs to have a mutually beneficial situation. So co-budgeting is right here. I'm not going to go into that because I don't know it right now. So here I am at the mutual aid platform. We call it the MAP for the mutual aid network. And we just got this up on our own server, and we're just working on pulling it together well. But I'm going to just show you a couple things that exist now and what we think the potential is for them going into the future. So first of all, we got this from the Yes Men. Do you guys know the Yes Men? They're heroes of mine, and they're on our advisory board now for mutual aid networks, which is great. And we got this from their action switchboard, and we just have to hook it up. But this is a project page, and so this is like the view of a project, and you can see it in different views. But I think that we'll do this for individuals and projects, but here's sort of a description of who they are and what they do. And then at the bottom here, this is their needs. So it registers their needs for money, their needs for other stuff, and their needs for people. And then here's a progress bar that shows as their needs get filled. So we're going to have that be publicly viewable in the main mutual aid network. So anyone can go and see what your project is, and you'll be sharing sort of the evaluation of what you're doing and the outcomes that you're working toward, because that's what the mutual aid network is about. You're committing to share all that stuff. And anyone can come and see that and decide to contribute money to your project. So your little bar can be going up. So you have this ongoing crowdfunding thing all the time that you don't have to be setting up and maintaining. More than that, though, Pope and Dalai Lama pillow fight, that's that contribution, or that project that we're looking at. But more than that, each one gives you a chance to go and contribute. So if you want to contribute something other than money, you can join the main man, and you can contribute, you can offer to contribute man hours, like time bank hours, or stuff like frequent flyer miles, or maybe you have some land that you want to contribute to the Eco Village network. Really our goal is to make a resource bank that's really broad. So you can trade time, or you can trade stuff, or you can contribute money. And so we wouldn't be saying donate, because this is stuff that you can contribute. So you could join, and you could offer to help that project in person, and they would have a way to vet you. So this is like actually designed to manage really serious work. You can contribute supplies or funds. And then in the back end, so we don't have that front end part yet, but we have this back end part. And I'm going to show you, I put this mapping summit up, and we're going to flesh this out more. And everyone's going to earn man hours for the work they put into this mapping summit. So hang on. Sorry, it's just going slow. Okay. So here we have projects, and these help us manage our workflow, and here's one for the mapping project. And this isn't all set up yet, and we'll get it all set up actually on Monday in our tech work group meeting. But here's the mapping project, and I created it in here, and it made an email alias, which we're just getting going. And then I could invite these different members of the main man to be part of this project, and we can set up tasks, and it automatically sends some things out to us to let us know, and people can take on tasks. You can get it assigned to you. And there's all this back end that happens beforehand to set up your company. So it's like legitimate workflows set up that are approved by the group. And people are often asking like how you might game something like this, but there's really none of that here. Like it's really people who are members, they join and they participate in the task. So anyhow, so I just only put one thing up here because like I said, we just got it up and running. We're just experimenting with it and are going to simplify all the interface that people interact with to make it more intuitive. But in the meantime, so we created tasks under this Madison mapping thing. And one was about making the agenda. And anyone who worked on this knows that we were typing all kinds of tasks on an email list and on a Google Doc and stuff. So this isn't adding to the level of work we do because we're constantly typing things to communicate with each other, and we don't have a good workspace that we've decided on to do it. So anyhow, creating the summit agenda is one of the tasks. Now, once our company is set up and all the workflows are set, I can say what I did, plan and host web meeting to create the agenda. And I can say it was a 1.5 hour meeting and took half hour to plan, and that's the date I did it, and that's when I did it. And then we can just have it fill my account with the hours that I spent doing it. So what I'm trying to show between this posterity budget, where I could have a profile that says what my needs are, in the different variety of resources, then I can be doing this work as I go along. You know, I might be part of a mutual aid network that's doing the mapping summit. I might be part of one that's a music and culture exchange. So my house, you know, might be an asset in that network that I'm putting in for a certain type of compensation. My collective work on the mapping summit is something I put in for a different type of compensation. And I can be just doing the work that I do in the world, and my accounts can kind of be filling up as I document it. And I can be seeing the progress toward meeting my material needs, and I can maybe see that as as a member of these different networks, and they know what their progress is. So I might know I have lots and lots of hours now. What I really need is some money to pay for my health insurance. So maybe I see that I need to do the kind of work that I can earn money for. Maybe I go to the savings pool that we create and I say, I really need money and I've earned all this time. So we do something with member rebates and points that I can put some of my time into the pool, get some money out that corresponds but isn't a direct transaction between time and money. It's based on our social and legal agreements. Does that make sense? So I'm doing a variety of work. Some of it's compensated in man hours easily. Like all the work that I'm doing for the summit, it's a lot easier for me to know I can get hours than money for that.
One of the things that I find a bit problematic is the following. When I used to be in my normal job, like 20 years ago, and I tried to join the Let's stuff, it was just too time consuming for somebody who has a job.
Yes.
Right, no way. Just give me money and I buy something because I can't spend hours after my job looking for the right person. And it seems to me this is quite intensive in like time you need to self-manage and to look at your network. And so I don't know, this is just an idea. And I don't know if it will work, but it's kind of the way I imagine it is you have one basic network and people trust each other, like in Inspire, for example, right? Then you have simple plugins,
Mhm.
right? Where for my health insurance, I don't need to look for 3-4 hours. You know what I mean? Like when I hear you, I think, my God, so many things need to work together in order to make that work, and it may never, get there. As opposed to like very simple plugins where like, okay, this is for health, this is for food. Does that make any sense? It's just that I'm afraid that it's very complex, and of course, for people who are motivated, that's okay. But what about all the other people maybe struggling, just to survive or having 2 jobs?
Yes.
And then you come with these kinds of things, and they say, well, it's just too much investment. A plugin is, sorry, that's tech talk. You have a basic software, and you just add something to it. Like in your browser, on the internet, you can just add stuff. It's called a plugin. Yeah, it's like an extension.
I totally agree that it needs to be easy. So let me just say a little bit more about it and try to demonstrate how I think that we can do the hard part as a small group and have it become easy for future people. So number one is I wouldn't expect someone to like just who is working full time and really busy to be jumping in and doing like this sort of work that's managed this way. But we have a bunch of people who are doing this sort of work that's managed this way. So I see it as sort of like between freelance and entrepreneur work that is like really like this all the time, like sort of finding a middle ground so there's some security with that. And offering up ways that people who are working a lot can dip a toe in. So one example that we talked about at the beginning. So I'm a core part of my mutual aid network. I'm really motivated to get it going. We have a core team of people who are already sort of the activists who've been focused on that. So we're doing that, and we're logging tasks this way, and we're getting paid some money based on an agreement. We're getting paid time based on an agreement, and that's just getting paid to us as we manage our tasks. So we're not doing anything a lot harder than usual. But then at the same time, we've invited people in the neighborhood to participate. And one of the things that we need is some wealth redistribution. So the person who's working full time, who doesn't want to think about it, like we've invited them to a free meal and done this budget thing with them. Maybe, if they want to do it. But so someone wants to do it, they recognize the need they had, and they see that they could use 4 hours a week in man hours to take care of their elderly parent and get some meals cooked. So they would put 4 hours worth of their pay each week into the savings pool, and that becomes available to us, and they get their 4 hours that they spend on work, and it's based on the need that they have and that they want to participate in this network. So it is partly about creating a lot of ways for people to participate kind of marginally. Or I might commission work from you because we're making our mutual aid network to develop more food production on the block, and I need a video. So I ask you to produce a video, and we can pay you a little stipend if you don't want to join. But if you do want to join, here's this whole variety of resources. You can have an all-access pass to the swap that we have, or whatever it is, whatever incentives we want to make. And it totally has to be fun and easy with a lot of points of entry. And I agree. And I guess one way that I look at it is we're going to talk about the really complicated anyhow, some of it seems complicated and some doesn't. It all seems a lot less complicated than the money we're using every day, which we don't think about, and we have just a lot of easy points of interaction with it, and we do need to create that totally. Yes, having things like plugins, so you don't really have to think about it, and that's part of the idea of having your budget and having your accounts filling up, so you really don't have to think about it that much. You can see at a glance, I'm a little short on this resource. I can either do more work that way, or I can make an exchange under these agreements, and that has to be really transparent and easy to find what kind of agreement. So that's totally true. And I don't know about that's part of why we bring smart people here to spend a week together is figure out how plugins would make that better, or maybe I'm conceptualizing sort of, the wrong pieces fitting together the wrong way. So that's exactly the kind of question we have to explore. Paul?
Yeah, okay, so
in 2002, I wrote an article on the future of money, and the key thing that it revolved around was this notion that the currency in which a transaction is going to take place is actually secondary to identifying the matching mechanism between the provider and the needer, right? So there are some sites online that have done a really good job of creating systems. I'll give you one in a second. But I want us to take a step back, because whether we're talking about time or Bitcoin or dollars or whatever, that stage of someone has something that can provide what I need, and I have something that can provide one of their needs. Now we're ready to engage. That all has to happen as a separate matching mechanism before the discussion about how do we include or experience this transaction or engagement or whatever it turns out to be. That's after, right? So I'm in the Lego community. You guys know the little plastic blocks, right? So we build lots of stuff with Lego, take pictures. And one of the things we all need is more Lego, right? Well, there's a clearinghouse online where people sell Lego. So people buy hundreds and hundreds of sets, part them out, and put the parts online into the clearinghouse. And people who want Lego, you go in and you say, well, I want one of these, or 10 of those, or 2 of those, or whatever, right? You don't have to, this is addressing their time concern, Michelle. You don't have to spend a lot of time expressing your needs into that infrastructure. It's been around forever. It works great. What happens is when people have offerings that match your needs and they're putting new inventory into the system, because it really is just an inventory tracking mechanism, you get notified. There is someone out there right now within seconds who just says they can fulfill your need. You don't go looking, right? You reverse the arrow so that you're being told, it's 4 p.m. and you want a meal between 5 and 6, and you'll get told. You get a notification that says, yeah, there's somebody who just got home from work, and they have said that they can do that because today something else got canceled and they've just updated their profile in the system. So there are really good mechanisms for activating the ideas that you're putting forward. And it will take some time to sort of tweak the dynamics of that. But I just wanted to affirm and express confidence that you can make this stuff work really effectively. I'm excited about it. And I guess I'll just stop there.
Cool. Sandra and then Laura?
I was going to say towards Michelle Bowden's comment, I think, and towards your comment, Paul, like the intention, the request offer, so like announcing of intentions, then there's the process itself, and then there's the tracking of the outcome by some means, whether that's by token exchange or by rewards. There was a gentleman here yesterday, Gary Lee, with the good point system, where just by SMS codes, you can transfer tokens. So one thing I was thinking about as we were looking at offers, requests, and functions, which I'll call roles for right now, of the different agents, it'd be awesome if we had a just mutual credit system to give weight to those. Like, I agree about that one, or I think that is a mature or robust offer, or something like that. You can even have multiple ones, and you can make it just through whatever communication tool people already use. I mean, people plug a lot of stuff into like the Slack communication channels, right? And now there's open source models of that. Having Rose, Rocket Chat.
Yeah, so Weezer actually is that also. There's a marketplace, and so this is the map for the man. So when I'm saying that I can log the time I did and have my account fill up, I can have it fill up through Weezer. I can have it fill up with dollars because it will be hooked with PayPal. I can have it filled with any kind of mutual credit that we design. So when I said the serious fun thing, it really is about like making a playground. So we have core principles, and we don't want those to be violated, but within those, and that's part of like, I think some of the design emerges this week, but within those core principles, we can play with anything we want. Like we've talked about making mutual credit called the Many, M-A-N-Y, and it can be like really fluid. Like I will give you X many miles for this thing that you're offering, or
nights of a homestay or meals, like however we want to represent things. So yeah, and people talk a lot about sort of reputation currencies and things like that. So that is a piece that exists here and that we want to play with in this context.
Yeah, just the plus one, the short code, like a plugin that plugs into regular communication channels so people aren't taking the extra step, it's just a couple of extra buttons. And then plus one, the collaborative budgeting, and budgeting being used as a prioritization method for actions.
Yep.
I just wonder why I was using plugin in a metaphorical way. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily as a technological thing, just as kind of a general idea is like, if I'm looking for healthcare within the man, there's something for healthcare. It's easy. I just know how it works. I don't have to balance out 10 different things to find healthcare.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes, and that's totally the intention. So that's another piece that we're building as a resource repository. And we have just like little rough drafts right now for it, but have people working on it who are good at like thinking through where it'll be most resilient and how we can put information in one place that's mirrored and shared a lot of different places, and just so that's a big piece of what we need to do. And when I say we, I mean like collectively the whole network. So it's not something that I'm going to figure out. It's something that we've made this infrastructure for people to come together and contribute their ideas and their work toward doing it. And that communications piece is, and that's the intention. Have a lot of different template agreements so you can like quickly search on what your goals are, find similar projects. You can see what their to-do lists were. You can see what resources a similar project used to do it, or I can just like search on healthcare expenses, just a variety of ways that you can be led toward, as small of a piece or as big of a pool of information as you need on it. Okay.
I just wanted to say.
Oh, sorry.
I think that it's a really legitimate concern, and one that we're working with the time bank as well, because you get certain needs that there are a lot of those needs, and then not enough people to fill all the needs. And there's also a psychology, I think, that goes with it. So, I mean, we're working to figure out how to make it work. I think it's doable, but it is like you just have to keep working through it on a smaller scale until you can scale it up, because there's just human nature involved in certain things, and as people drop out, because people feel like their needs don't get met, then it starts to spiral back the other way. So it's an ongoing, you just really have to work at it constantly. It's what it seems like with the time bank.
Yeah, and it's the dysfunctions of time banking and the lack of self-sustainability of time banking systems and organizations like it are a fundamental reason we embarked on this project. We really came to believe time banking should be a function and not a thing. You shouldn't have to make a time bank in order to do time banking. And if you have to make an organization that's focused on the means of exchange, it's just another form of capitalism. You have to like constantly be reporting, and we just like it's part of the nonprofit industrial complex. It drives things that way because you have to get subsidy and administer an organization, and nonprofit structure kind of naturally selects for people who are good at capturing subsidy and administering organizations. And we really felt that we should have something where everyone is a member and has direct ownership of the system, and that it needs to be connected with these other like food chain levels of the economic system. I referred to it yesterday, like how it would be really easy to just kind of create a second tier economy, which is better than none or being totally excluded, but people don't deserve that either. So we need to connect that abundant economy with the more scarce economy and just have better flows between them. But part of the idea is, first of all, we can make it more self-sustaining by like the strengths of savings pools fill the limitations of time banking. Our time bank suffers because we are too dependent on outside funding sources, and we are always having a hard time capturing
the amount of money for our material needs. So for us, the next need was to connect with a savings pool and have some more liquidity. Like another example is we're a nonprofit, so we're always like on reimbursement basis contracts from the government, and it's really hard with cash flow. So we could have a savings pool to buffer that and to help us meet those needs. So first of all, putting it into an ecosystem with these other things to sort of structurally make it flow and connect us with the whole array of resources we need, but then also to address some of the social things. Like people are used to, it's part of why I kind of came full circle. I got into this because I want to do the work I want to do. Started focusing on economic tools, but kind of came back around to, no, it's about doing the work we want to do and how do we put things together that make that happen. But one of the ways I came back to that is realizing we want to incorporate time make more into the fabric of people's lives. Well, people usually get their currency through their work, and people are really used to having tons of structure imposed on them the whole time they're growing up and they get into a work life. So we realized, I mean, part of why our time make has been more successful than others is we do projects like our youth court and our gardening project and our energy project and disability inclusion neighborhood care team projects. Because first of all, they appeal to different motivations with people, but they also provide structure. So people come in and they sort of have a job that they're offered and they earn time make hours through that job. So then we realize, all right, we need to like take it further and really integrate this. So your job that you have, you might have an opportunity to earn some really valuable things that may or may not be money by doing more of the collective work in your community. And you might have an opportunity to have all this other activity that you already do be valued because we come together. And if we're all making it a core part of our budget and really making visible how we meet our material needs, especially along with a community of people who have that similar vision and motivation, then we're all a lot more motivated to actually make it real. So we started doing this budgeting thing just in the last couple weeks. We did it during a workshop in Paris, and it was really striking how much even just going through the exercise, and we'll do it tonight. I meant to do more of it this morning, but just how much going through the exercise really shifted people's perspective about how feasible this is. But it's the only thing that prevents mutual credit from being more valuable than money is full participation or enough participation with enough variety of resources to make it that valuable. So that's part of the idea. And a lot of people who are working on the main man, like myself included, I left my full-time job. I don't have a fallback. Like I have to make this work for me. I'm continuing to apply for grants and stuff. I'm trying to get money also to make it work for me. But as I get money, I'm going to be showing how it stretches that much farther because I'm going to displace my need for it. And that's what we're doing. And it's kind of similar to how we're starting this mapping thing with what are our existing strong networks, who's motivated now. And we do that and we go by, and the way we said it, redesigning our own work lives and those of people in our networks. So we have cores of people committed to it right now. We have 8 pilot sites and probably at least 16 who are serious about coming on. And so we're committed to trying it. And we'll try it to varying degrees and invite other people in to try it to varying degrees. And then the ones who are really motivated, we deal with the thinking through all this complicated stuff and make it a lot easier for the next people. So that is kind of that's the strategy. And again, I mean, that's why I've invited you. You're probably wondering why I've invited you all here. So yeah, that's the idea, is we enlisted you to help figure this out because you're the smart ones. Yeah, so I mean, yes, it kind of, I mean, we did propose this as like a systems thinker, technical thinker kind of summit. And people have been saying who's in the room and who's not in the room. We only invited the community to certain things because it's not for everyone to do. I mean, we have this much diversity in the group, talking through the mapping, and it's really hard to come to agreement. Sometimes it's fine to just have a little group of people, focus in. And so I think that, I don't know, in my perspective is that we're where we need to be. Might be sloppier than it needs to have been, but it also needs to be sloppy in order for things to emerge. We just were doing little art of hosting thing and about walking the path between chaos and order. The only way you can innovate is go into the chaos a little bit and give things a chance to emerge and try to figure out how to put some order to it. So that's what we'll do this afternoon, is go a little farther into the chaos about
what it means to have a basic livelihood, how we look at doing budgets, how we might mutualize that, like just even exploring how to come up with a formula, and that can help us identify some questions about how big a geographic area should we look at, like what's an appropriate level to test things, what's an appropriate level to aim for, or whatever. I mean, who knows what the questions are at this point. So it's time to start wrapping this up, and so we'll be saying goodbye to the people joining us online, and then those of us who are sticking around will work on some of these concepts. We can come back to yesterday's map and move forward in the budgeting thing. From 5 to 6, we're inviting people to come for dinner and learn about what we're doing. And 6 to 7, we're going to do a workshop where we do this budgeting tool. It can be in the format that we already have, or maybe we'll evolve it somehow today. So that's what's happening today. And I want to give people a chance to ask last questions or express a last thought about going forward. So maybe I'll start with the people who are online. Boyd, if you do want to share anything, go ahead and unmute yourself and try. And Kurt, I'm going to ask you to go ahead too. Oh, Boyd, can we hear you now? I don't hear you if you're speaking. All right, so I'll ask Kurt to jump in. And Boyd, you might want to check your audio thing to see if it's set up on telephone or mic and speakers. So hopefully you can see what I'm pointing at. But if you click this audio thing, that might be the issue. And Kurt, you have any last minute thoughts or questions?
No, nothing real particular. It seems like the individuals in the room are kind of getting a little closer to what the day can bring. You know, in the work product of everything you're going to work on this afternoon. So I appreciate everything you guys are going to do this afternoon, and it seems like we got a lot of necessities out of the way this morning. So it's been very instructive for me. I don't know many of you, so I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Boyd, speak up and see if it's working now. And while we wait, I'll go to... Oh, are you there? Is that Boyd?
Can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Oh, I'm in. Well, I've enjoyed listening. It's been very informative. The idea of linking the mapping of the community and needs and assets and resource flows, and then linking that to individual livelihoods is complex and challenging. It's a great new learning for me to be a part of this, and that's all I'll say. So I'm sorry I couldn't figure out my audio, and I still don't know where I'm making the mistake, but it was good to be here listening. Thanks.
All right, glad you could join us verbally at the end. Thanks. Scott?
Yeah, great meeting and great work everybody's doing out there in Madison. Just to maybe a point of inspiration and thanks. What you guys are doing, I liken it to what the young Peter Kropotkin did in 1864 when he went off on his geographical survey expedition in northern Manchuria. Was when he was observing, doing his mapping as a young anarchist activist. He was discovering the symbiotic relationships in nature, which inspired him to write the book Mutual Aid. Mm-hmm. And so I like to think of what everybody's doing here as walking in his footsteps and exploring new territory in collaborating space. So great work, you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, and you might want to join us tomorrow when Paul starts the conversation about ants. All right, Steve?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, thanks. I've had a really good time listening to this. It really resonates with me, within me, and it's been the same kind of thing that I've been working on for decades myself. In Chicago, it's a whole new world out there in Chicago. I just got to Chicago a couple of years ago, so just getting my feet on the ground here. But we're working toward the same kind of goals here. with a much broader but more shallow network of folks. One thing that I want to bring into the picture is that we need to be careful that we transition in a way that makes full use of the resources that we might have. For instance, I'm working on my retirement investments. I've been fortunate enough to put together a few retirement investments. So I started looking at, I need to take these fossil free. So I'm working with an investment counselor to do that. But as I'm doing that, my mind is jumping ahead and saying, well, look, is there any way that I can take some of these retirement funds and fund this movement that I really believe in, and still have them available as retirement funds? So we need to think about out of the box about things of that nature.
Absolutely, and that is a big topic on the savings pool front. So yes, hold that thought, and we will do some things with that in the future. Thank you. Did you want to say anything? Okay. Sander, any thoughts or questions to close out for the morning? Okay. Paul?
Just that I have some materials that I can share with you from teaching e-communities at the University of Michigan. We're going to talk about gamification later this week, I know that, but I want to give you some stuff that's about analyzing recreational participation and how to keep the activity moving once you've got participants in it.
Great. Thank you. Justice?
No, I'm good.
Okay. What? Or David?
Yeah, I'm good too.
All right. Bob, any parting questions or comments? Moving forward. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And yep. So, far-flung people, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. And we will keep doing